client was the Shea Center, and the Shea Center is a nonprofit organization in San Juan Capistrano who's dedicated to improving the lives of people with disabilities through therapeutic horse-related programs. And at the Shea Center, they offer classes that focus on a broad range and combination of disabilities, and they all fall under the term therapeutic riding, but for each class, it's a sophisticated program that's developed for the specific needs of that group. So, for example, a physical rehabilitation class would be aimed towards people who have impairments with muscle, bone, or nerve. And there are also cognitive, sensory processing, and horsemanship classes. And at the Shea Center, the #1 diagnosis is autism, with cerebral palsy being #2. And the average client stays at the Shea Center for about 7 years. And the top 3 client referrals come from medical doctors, educational professionals, and peers. And programming fees account for less than 14% of the Shea Center annual operating revenue, and the rest of that comes from generous donors. And there are currently 18 horses and ponies at the Shea Center who serve the Shea Center's clients in their therapeutic programs in 2010.
Our first consultation was in the end of September, and we met with the executive director, Dana Butler. And she expressed 2 concerns: a disconnect between their clients, volunteers, and donors with their move towards social media, email communication, and their website use. And the second was the need to gather email addresses. She felt her database was lacking. And we had a second consultation where we provided her with ideas on possible campaigns. And the first one was to present her with a pre-event to the Riders Recognition Week, which is next week, basically. And we would invite medical clinics, industry contacts, clients, and donors. In this event, we would create awareness and donation efforts. And the second one was a brochure that promoted website use, email communication, and Facebook likes.
So one of the strengths of the Shea Center is that the staff is really qualified, and there is an availability of skilled manpower. They have an abundance of volunteers. They have 550 annual volunteers and 200 volunteers on a weekly basis, because every client needs between 1 to 3 volunteers, so it helps a lot for them. They also have foundations with a strong economic base and a strong physical presence. The Shea Center actually used to live in trailers, and now they live in this beautiful building in San Juan Capistrano. And it's well equipped. They give their horses the best possible treatment. They also have a very warm connection with families that are involved, which creates that amiable environment to them. And that's seen a lot on their Facebook. They have pictures of kids and their horses. They're all about the kids, even though they do have older clients as well. And also they have a supportive community and large local interest. And in 2007, they were rated a 99% rating in according to the NARHA, which stands for the North American Riding for the Handicapped Association International. And this encourages people to use its facilities due to its reputation. And some of the weaknesses of the Shea Center is that they have some trouble going beyond their little bubble in San Juan Capistrano. It's very far, deep in South Coast. Unless you live there, it's kind of hard to get through there. An example, Martha was one of the ladies we interviewed for our feature article, and she lives in Santa Ana. Although she loves going there, she did have a complaint that it was far for her. There's also a lack of education or misinformation on the clients. The nature of the client's handicap is never really fully explained in detail, which could cause some ignorance among the public. Also, there's bad weather could prevent riders from having an effective session outside. And some opportunities is that, of course, you can educate people about, the weaknesses, about the handicaps of the clients. Also, of course, you can communicate through media outlets, social media. That's like a typical opportunity. There's various media outlets throughout Orange County. There's plenty of local media outlets as well. And social networking in the nonprofit sector is an emerging market with lots of potential. They could also get more donations from donors, potential donors. They could fundraise through events. They could also engage people that weren't engaged before through these things. Some threats of the Shea Center is that they could potentially be in danger of shutting down due to lack of funds, because there's always that economic uncertainty that they might not get the donations or enough donations, or they might not get the fundraising through their events. Also, they do utilize the Facebook, and since they do have a lot of older clients that don't use internet, they don't even use their email, they use postal, US mail, they use their house phones. That's a threat to them, because they won't have that, they'll have that ineffective communication that they have to sort of mix and match between both forms of communication. Also, there's increased competition. There's a few other therapeutic riding centers, and since they are located kind of far, if they don't expand throughout the rest of Orange County, they could be threatened by other centers.
So for our key publics, we have various groups. We have volunteers, charitable advocates, senior citizens, and also current donors and supporters. We decided to target volunteers and charitable advocates because on average, the Shea has about 200 volunteers a week, because sometimes it can take about 3 volunteers just to get a client, to get services. And also because it brings them, a sense of happiness and joy, because they build a relationship with the client as they see how they progress in their therapy. Senior citizens, because even though they might not have the disability as a client, they can relate to the physical changes and challenges that come with age, and also because they're reaching a point in their lives in which they might want to make a monetary contribution to a specific nonprofit. And also current donors, because their contributions are what helps keep the Shea Center in business. Now for situational analysis, we want to increase the awareness of the Shea Center outside of South Orange County. We also want to increase the number of their email database, the number of their Facebook likes, number of volunteers, and also donations. So we decided to take advantage of this time of the year in which people are more giving, and we hope that they make more donations.
So after analysis, we decided that the core problem that the Shea Center has is that they're unable to reach out to a large percentage of their donors or volunteers or potential donors, because they may not know that there is a Facebook page for the Shea Center, or they may not be technologically savvy and have an email address. So our goals for this campaign were, number one, to just raise awareness about the Shea Center, just what they do, who they serve, and it just opens an open door for more donors and volunteers. And our second goal was to raise the Shea Center's fourth quarter donations by 5 to 10%. A large amount of their money comes from events that they put on, but only 20% of their money comes from like a donation sent in. So we thought that we could really raise that number. Our third goal was to raise their email database by 5 to 10%. That's a huge way that they communicate with their clients and their volunteers. And they only have 4,000 email addresses, and compared to how many volunteers or clients that they have, or like family members of those clients, it's a very small percentage. Our fourth goal was to raise their Facebook likes by at least 7 likes per week. And Facebook is also a really great way to communicate with people by posting stories and pictures so that people can really get a feel for what they do. And our final goal was to get our Future At campaign that we came up with published in at least 5 media outlets in the Orange County area. Okay, and one of our strategies was to encourage people to get or stay connected with the Shea Center through digital platforms. So one thing that we did for that was we placed the Facebook logo on the Giving Thanks newsletter insert, and we mentioned the Facebook fan page in our Future At articles. Another strategy was to raise Orange County's awareness of the Shea Center's presence, activities, and donation opportunities. And for this, we created an insert to attach in the biannual newsletter. Another strategy was the Future At campaign, which aimed to raise awareness, increase donations, and increase volunteerism. And for this, we each interviewed and wrote a feature article on a client of wide demographic area.
Okay, so for the first campaign, we did a newsletter insert themed around giving thanks. Each one of us wrote a small blurb in this insert that we learned was going to be sent around the winter holidays to all the clients, donors, and volunteers and interns of the Shea Center. So the donation envelope was also included, just in hopes that while receiving the newsletter with updates of the Shea, they also included a small donation to the center. And the second part of the first campaign was a contact card that we created. We wanted to be a part of an event for our clients, but due to schedule conflicts, they weren't going to be able to make it for their event that they're having next week. So we created this contact card in hopes that they can gather more email addresses and also contact information from their clients, because many of their clients, volunteers, and donors will be attending.
And again, the featurette campaign was themed around the holiday season, promoting donations, acts of kindness, and charitable causes. The clients we featured were strategically chosen so that it would cover a wide range of Orange County and a wide demographic. And we also pitched to small local newspapers and city magazines so that we have a better chance of being picked up. In regards to results, we suggested a URL change on their Facebook page, just because when we did use search engines like Google.com and Facebook's search engine, it didn't really come up in the first or second slot. And after that change, there was a steady increase of 7.8 likes weekly, a 0.4 increase over previous months. The newsletter reached a total of 10,644 addresses, and it was also email blasted to 4,000 accounts, and it's also featured on their website. With our campaign efforts and it being the newsletter being triple exposed, we hope to raise $12,000 more over last year's fourth quarter donations. That's a 4.8 increase. And the featurette campaign was recently pitched to 20 beat writers around OC, and so we're still trying to figure out where that's going to be. And where they can go from here is, we thought of two possible campaigns they can do, and one is focusing on Facebook and their likes, but possibly a campaign idea focusing on the content and the weekly posting rate. And the second one is a press junket happening biannually, just because the Shea Center does work in with the seasons. We would invite reporters, clients, donors, and it would increase reachability and notoriety through media mention. And lastly, they could use the contact card that we created at future events like their May Gala, annual barbecue, and their Ladies